forward is not a good thing for the Canadian pensioner.
Member for Renfrew St. Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, this new tax hike on pensions and employers is not a good idea. It just reduces the availability of employment while putting the retirement savings at risk.
Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to draw the House's attention to a worsening situation in arms control. Globally, we've seen an alarming development in nuclear weapons states modernizing nuclear weapons for what they describe as tactical purposes. This may remind some of my colleagues of Dr. Strangelove. We simply can't use nuclear weapons. We should be disarming globally. A working group this summer in the United Nations is working to present for the United Nations a 2017 negotiation of a treaty with the goal of eliminating nuclear weapons. I don't understand how it could have happened, Mr. Speaker, but in August, Canada voted against taking that to the General Assembly. It is going to the General Assembly. Another vote will take place in as little as a few days' time. It's critically important that Canada stand with those who want to ensure we have a world without nuclear weapons.
Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, it is Housing on the Hill Day, and I want to thank Bob Cottrell, the President of Altogether Affordable Housing Corporation. Under Bob's leadership, this not-for-profit expanded to include 5-unit building in Belleville for low-income individuals living with chronic illnesses. This has a significant local impact in combating poverty. On a national scale, our government's investment of $2.3 billion to expand access to affordable housing, including for seniors, will also make a great impact. Altogether believes that every person has the right to live in dignity, the right to reside in sustainable housing that is safe, decent, affordable, and adapted to their needs. I couldn't agree more. Mr. Speaker, they say that home is where the heart is, and I can attest that Bob Cottrell's heart is big enough to provide a home for many people. I applaud him for his continued efforts and thank him for his friendship.
Bravo.
Thank you, Bob.
The honourable member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
There is a special group of students in Ottawa today. They are participating in a program I call the Capital Experience, where student leaders from each of the 7 high schools in my riding come to Ottawa for 3 days to learn about career opportunities in public life. They have visited parliaments, the South Korean Embassy, Amnesty International, the Supreme Court of Canada, the University of Ottawa, and Summa Strategies. I wish to thank those who shared their time with these students and thank the businesses and service clubs who sponsored them. Today, Speaker, I welcome to Parliament Sage Krofchick and Colby Farrell from Brock, Olivia Earle and Danica Freider from Crestwood, Olivia Anstis and Taylor DeAndrea from Fenland Falls, Andrew Carmount and Rachel Reddering from Haliburton, Cassandra Sherlarenko, Ellen Duke Watson, and my co-op student Jared Zitman from IE Weldon. Lily Virtue and Summer Schweitzer from LCVI, Chris Flynn and Lauren Geniak from St. Thomas Aquinas. I ask all my colleagues to join me in wishing these young people all the best as they make decisions regarding their future.
The honourable member for Nepean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada is a trading nation. We need global trade to sustain the prosperity we enjoy in our wonderful country. We need to promote more bilateral and multilateral trade agreements. We need to honor our trade commitments. Mr. Speaker, like every government in the world, the federal government of Canada is the biggest buyers of the goods and services in our country. We need to use this buying power to develop and sustain small businesses in Canada. Small businesses employ more Canadians than the large ones. There are many contracts offered by the government of Canada which fall outside the scope of these bilateral, multilateral trade agreements. Hence, Mr. Speaker, I suggest, subject to all bilateral, multilateral trade agreements, the Government of Canada, when awarding contracts for the purchases of goods and services, provide preference to Canadian small businesses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Churchill, Kiiwetinoong-Aski.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow we will be hosting a national forum on the Hill entitled The Precarious Generation, Millennials Fight Back. We invite all to attend this first-of-its-kind forum. Les milléniaux ont quelque chose.
Millennials have something to tell us about their future, the stories that we've heard rather from them, who are moving and more powerful than we might ever have imagined.
Consultations across the country are hopelessness, anxiety, and phrases like, I've done everything I needed to do, and I still can't make it. Or, the deck is stacked against me. Les jeunes travailleurs.
Young workers only represent 15% of the workforce, but account for more than 1/4 of the unemployed. 48% of young people have part-time jobs, and it's often not by choice.
Generation is a struggle for all Canadians. It is part of a global struggle against exploitation and marginalization, a struggle for a better social and economic system for us all. And tomorrow's forum is only the beginning. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Léonard-Saint-Michel.
16 marks the 150th anniversary of an historical milestone in Canada's history. Nous soulignons.
Today we celebrate the adoption in 1866 of the Civil Code of Lower Canada. That is 1 year before Confederation, setting out principles, stating the law, while ensuring the consistency of the rules, and therefore allowing citizens to enjoy the benefits of a lawful society. These are only some of the virtues of the Civil Code. Today, many modern states offer their citizens this tool, which is a powerful civilizing force.
My colleagues, to mark the 150th anniversary of our Civil Code and its colossal contribution to the legal duality of our country.
The honourable member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, today I pay tribute to Joe Roberts, a man who grew up in Midland in my riding, but who in 1989 was a teenage addict living on the streets of Vancouver. With the help of family and a caring police officer, he was able to turn his life around. He went on to lead his own enterprise. He became financially independent and has shared his story with audiences across the country. 5 years ago, he and his colleagues created Push for Change, a project to raise the issue of youth homelessness to greater attention from policymakers and the public. 35,000 young Canadians face this reality every year. Last May 1st in St. John's, Newfoundland, he started pushing a shopping cart on a 9,000-kilometer trek across Canada, and he's speaking out in every community he visits. Today is day 178, and Joe is here visiting parliamentarians with his wife and campaign director, Marie. I invite all honourable members to join in saluting Joe Roberts' campaign and his Push for Change.
The honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to recognize the University of British Columbia for successfully completing the world's tallest wood building. At 18 stories high, Rock Commons shattered the previous record of 14 stories for wood construction. Trees sequester atmospheric carbon dioxide, and their wood stores the carbon. So in addition to being aesthetic, versatile, and safe, wood is a sustainable building material. Expanding possibilities for wood construction is good for the environment and good for the economy too, since wood product innovation provides new markets, new jobs, and new export opportunities. UBC's newest wood building will serve as a living lab for continuing this innovation. Mr. Speaker, BC's forest industry leadership, our world-class university and its partners, and this record-busting building have shown that through green innovation, the economy and the environment do go hand in hand. And when it comes to green buildings, the sky's the limit.
The honourable member for Alfred Pellan. Mr. Speaker, on this, the International Artists' Day, I want to pay homage to our Canadian artists, and particularly Alfred Pellan, for whom my riding is named. I'd also like to highlight a Canadian artist from Laval who has been acclaimed by international art critics and whose unique style is emulated. Ms. Santina Semadar-Panetta, who has exhibited in the greatest museums in the world, is just coming back from the Carrousel du Louvre in Paris with the first prize in hand.
Leonardo da Vinci Universal Artist Award, and she will be the only Canadian artist representing Canada at the International Biennial in Sicily in March 2017. I invite you to discover her art at santinasamadorpanetta.com. Je suis fier.
I am proud to count this great artist among my constituents in Alfred Pédant. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Carlton.
Today, 70 Special Olympians, their parents and volunteers are on Parliament Hill to share their incredible stories. Special Olympics Canada provides sporting opportunities to over 35,000 athletes of all ages, 100 of whom will be going to the Games in Austria next year for Canada. They represent a powerful movement of those who show greatness by conquering hardship every day. Almost 1 million disabled people have the pride of a job, and many more want the same opportunity. They have champions and people like Mark Waffer, the Tim Hortons owner, who's employed over 100 disabled people, saying that they get the same wages and often do a better job than their counterparts. Or Meticulon in Calgary, which is turning autistic young minds into IT professionals. That is the power of work and opportunity that the Special Olympians here today personify. They remind us that God made each of us special, that all have precious value, and that everyone must be free to earn a great life.
The honourable member for West Nova.
Mr. Speaker, in my beautiful riding of West Nova, too many rural communities do not have access to quality, reliable, high-speed internet service. In 2016, internet has become an essential service in the digital economy. Some people in my riding cannot watch this proceeding online, access government services, do their banking, or even check their email. Businesses such as seafood exporters cannot adequately communicate with their customers overseas, and tourism operators have trouble promoting their operations and attracting prospective visitors to our part of the world. I was pleased that Budget 2016 committed $500 million for extending and enhancing high-speed broadband coverage in rural and remote communities. And I certainly look forward to continuing to work with our government and our provincial and municipal partners, along with industry, to ensure that we link communities across West Nova and rural Canada to the rest of the world with high-speed internet. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Longueuil, Charles Lemoine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In this Women's History Month, we talk about fascinating women who have shaped Canada's history. It's thanks to them that Canada today is the country that we know. Today, I want to pay homage to a woman of my riding from Longueuil, Charles Lemoine, Ms. Diane, who is a great member of our community. Ms. Baribeau has been very involved in the Maison Lanoine, of whom she is a founding member. This organization, which is a local one, improves the lives of men, women, and children in my riding. It offers educational services for people in need, and this is an admirable effort. And as a great volunteer, but also as a woman, I can only salute Madame Martel Baribeau, who deserves all of our respect. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, a Yazidi prayer says, "Thou hast led us out of darkness into the light." Nadia Murad and her people have seen much darkness, but she has not been consumed by it. She has instead been the spark of light that has borne the hope of her people, awakening the world to our moral obligation to protect, preserve, and bring justice to victims of genocide. Nadia, Canada stands with you and your people. To her oppressors, Nadia has spoken, and we will stop your evil and see you to justice. You didn't break her, and her strength will be your undoing. Nadia, today Canada forms a covenant with you to answer your call to bring deliverance, refuge, and justice to your people. We will honor it, and we will challenge the world to do the same, to act to do what is right, to stand for what is good, just, and beautiful. Nadia, we honor you and we heed your call not only because we must, but because it is you that brought light to darkness.
The honourable member for Spadina, Fort York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honour to follow those comments. Today, Special Olympic athletes, coaches and parents from across Canada, in fact, are here in Ottawa to meet with MPs. This past September, I had the great honour of meeting an aspiring young man, Quinn Martin, a swimmer from my riding of Spadina, Fort York. And he told me how the Special Olympics have enriched his life by giving him the chance to compete in the sport he loves. But it's also done something more important. It's given him his voice, a voice that he now uses in his family and his community to advocate for his peers. Today, I also had the honour of meeting another athlete from Toronto, Simran Kaur. Her parents, Hardeep Singh and Jaspal Kaur, and Linda Ash, the Vice President of the Special Olympics, are here in Ottawa today. The Special Olympics program in communities right across this country, from coast to coast to coast, are helping over 40,000 Canadians like Quinn experience the joy and the transformative power of sport. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Special Olympics Canada for the positive role they play in all of our communities across this country. And this evening, they'll be hosting a reception with the Minister of Sport for persons with disabilities. I encourage all of us to attend.
The honourable member for Esquimalt, Saanich Sioux.
Mr. Speaker, today marks Rainbow Day on the Hill, a day when we invite LGBTQ youth to come to Parliament to shadow out MPs. We hope this opportunity to see lesbian and gay leaders in action will inspire these youth to become involved as leaders in their own communities. While today the focus is on youth, I also want to remind the government that there is much unfinished business when it comes to my community. Hundreds were kicked out of the Canadian Forces for being gay, lesbian, bisexual and transgender, and are still saddled with dishonourable discharges. Hundreds of gay men are still haunted by criminal records for things that are no longer illegal in Canada, often preventing them from travelling or volunteering. Thousands of public servants face government-orchestrated witch hunts and firings for being members of our community. The harm this did to people's careers and lives remains unacknowledged. The gay blood ban and an unequal age of consent remain in place. Yes, symbols are important, Mr. Speaker, but this government needs to act on this unfinished business, and in doing so, to help put an end to homophobia and transphobia once and for all.
The Honourable member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, it looks as though Conservatives were right after all about how Albertans feel about the job-killing Liberal carbon tax.
I guess they were.
The residents of Medicine Hat, Cardston, Warner sent a very loud message to the Liberal government yesterday.
Very loud. Very loud. Very loud. Very, very loud.
The electors of Medicine Hat, Cardston, Warner recognize we need some blue skies to balance out the Liberals' not-so-sunny ways. Yeah. This by-election was about Canadians standing against the Liberal government's massive deficits, tax hikes, and their plans for a job-killing carbon tax. I personally know how grueling it can be to run in a by-election. I want to congratulate Mr. Motz, his team, and his volunteers on their win. He will be an outstanding representative for his riding, and like all Conservative members, he will be a strong voice for the Canadian taxpayer. We all mourn the loss of Jim Hillier, who was a great MP. But today, I would like to welcome Glenn Motz to our team. And here's a number I wanted to put out there. Conservative 70, the Coalition for a Carbon Tax 26.
Honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Mr. Speaker, today is Navy Day on the Hill. This is a unique opportunity to recognize the importance of Canada's Navy and naval organizations, a time to celebrate Canada as a maritime nation. Whether conducting search and rescue operations, deploying combat-ready ships, or providing humanitarian assistance, a strong Navy is vital to ensuring Canada's safety, freedom, and prosperity. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Navy is in the midst of the most comprehensive fleet modernization in its peacetime history. The national shipbuilding strategy will ensure we have relevant maritime capability that will defend both our nation and international obligations well into the 21st century. Today I ask all members of this House to join me in recognizing the significant contributions of Canada's Navy, to thank both our sailors and their families for their dedicated service and support in defending Canada and its interests at home and abroad. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions, questions orales. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
almost 8 months ago on International Women's Day, I asked the Prime Minister to bring Yazidi women and girls who've been victimized as sex slaves to Canada. Since then, Germany has brought in over 1,000 Yazidi sex slave survivors as refugees. Nadia Murad is one of these women, and she's here today asking for Canada to do its part. It's time for Canada to step up. How many Yazidis will the government commit to bring to Canada in the next 120 days?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I thank the member opposite for her question and her leadership on this file. It's important to emphasize that Canada will always be an open country, willing to step up and support people in need from all around the world. That's what we did over the past year, welcoming 30,000 Syrian refugees. That's what we're going to continue to do. And I'm pleased to see Nadia again today and reassure her that in the coming months we are committed to bringing in vulnerable refugees, Yazidi refugees.
Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank the Prime Minister for his verbal commitment, but we won't rest till we see action. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker.
Monsieur le Président, la chancelière.
Mr. Speaker, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel called upon the international community to establish security zones in the conflict zone in Iraq. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister answer this call and help to establish these security zones? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Yes, Mr. Speaker. The reality is that this government understands how important it is for Canadians to strengthen an image of Canada as being open, Canada's ability to be open and to accept people from all around the world. This is why we welcomed 30,000 Syrian refugees, and that is why we have committed to continue helping bring Yazidi refugees in the coming months.
Mr. Speaker,
the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The agreement represents jobs. It represents 80,000 new jobs for Canadians and $500 million new customers for Canadian businesses. But the Prime Minister isn't taking it seriously. He didn't get the deal done, and he's failed Canadian families that are looking for work. Conservatives understood the benefits of this deal that it brings to Canada, and we fought hard to get it over the finish line. With so many jobs at stake, will the Prime Minister get on a plane and do whatever it takes to get this deal done?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
From the day we took office, Mr. Speaker, we saw the difficulties and the challenges that would remain in getting CETA accepted. That's why we made changes to make it a more progressive deal, to fix the ISDS provisions that were of concern to Europe. We worked with multiple countries on improving relations and responding to concerns they have, and we are very pleased with the kind of work that we've been able to do to get CETA to this point, and we look forward to having a positive resolution in the coming days.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of getting on a plane, I want to thank the Prime Minister for making the trip to Medicine Hat to rally our troops. Mr. Speaker, after seeing him up close, Albertans were reminded of the huge cost of his carbon tax for families, for seniors, for small businesses, and they decisively voted Conservative. So, Mr. Speaker, while the Prime Minister hear this message, stop his job-killing policies, get Albertans back to work, and please visit more often.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
As I have for many years, I will continue to visit Alberta very often and all corners of the country. The fact is,
I'm glad we're all in a good mood today. Right Honourable, order. I know we want to hear the rest of the Prime Minister's answer. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I will continue to get out across this country and listen to Canadians and talk about how to build a stronger economy and protect the environment at the same time. I will not write off any corner of the country and will continue to engage and show Canadians that every voice matters to me, and this gives me a great opportunity to congratulate all the candidates who stepped up in our democratic process and indicate that I look forward to welcoming the new member from Medicine Hat, Cardston Warner, to this House. Thank you very much.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, fundraising by the Prime Minister's most senior cabinet ministers has now crossed the ethical line. From drug company executives to mining tech tycoons, this cash for access fundraising with the finance minister makes it seem like the Liberals learned nothing from the 1990s. These fundraisers are unethical, and they violate the Prime Minister's own rules to raise money from people who are seeking preferential access to government. Why is the Prime Minister ordering his ministers to be star attractions at these cash for access Liberal Party fundraisers?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Canadians know that they elected a government that is more open and accessible to all Canadians than ever before. The amount of consultations our ministers are doing, listening to Canadians, is actually the subject of much mirth and criticism from our opponents across the aisle. But we get out and are accessible to everyone. In terms of fundraising, we will always follow all the rules and all the laws in place, and the low limits on personal donations in the federal system ensures that there are no ethical challenges in fundraising that follows the rules.
The honourable member for Outremont.
The Prime Minister has given clear directives forbidding the sort of cash for access fundraising that a number of ministers have been caught participating in. But last week, when we raised the problem, the Prime Minister refused to admit anything was wrong or to return the money. And today we find out why. The Prime Minister has his own sketchy fundraisers on the go. So Canadians are wondering, has the Prime Minister lifted his ban on pay-for-play permanently, or just as long as he's doing it?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
As Canadians watch what's going on in the electoral cycle south of the border, we can be confident that the system we have in place is actually tremendously powerful in terms of keeping individual donations low, banning corporate donations, banning union donations. The rules in place ensure that when those rules are followed, there are no ethical breaches. There is openness, transparency, accountability, and the expectations of openness that Canadians expect of all their members of Parliament.
The honourable member for Outremont.
Because he's not as bad as the Conservatives. This week's he's not as bad as Trump.
The Prime Minister knows that his government needs to behave in a manner that is ethically beyond reproach, given their history. He said, providing privileged access to people who are ready to write a $1,500 check to the Liberal Party clearly does not constitute ethical behavior. So can the Prime Minister be sincere in his efforts to serve the public interest and to end the government's practice of giving the wealthy access to ministers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. In our federal system, we have very clear, restrictive and robust rules concerning fundraising. It's impossible for someone to give more than $1,500 per year to a federal party. And these are the rules that we are following and that all the members of this House follow. This is what Canadians expect, and that's why we don't have money influencing political decisions as parliamentarians, and all Canadians can be proud of our system. The honourable member for Outremont. Mr. Speaker, the situation in Muskrat Falls is getting worse every day. This government promised a new nation-to-nation relationship with Aboriginal peoples. And the Prime Minister said, no relationship is more important for me and for Canada than our relationship with Aboriginal peoples. But what has come of this fine sentiment? Will the Prime Minister finally take action on this file and protect the health of Aboriginal peoples who depend on fishing? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, we made commitments to Aboriginal peoples, and this indicates that respect, collaboration, and partnership is essential. This also applies to our relationship with the provinces. The provinces are working with the communities affected. They're consulting First Nations, and this is something that's very important in the decision-making process about the project. We trust the province in this manner.
And their supporters travelled all the way from Labrador to bring concerns about Muskrat Falls to the Prime Minister here in Ottawa. And all they got in return was a flippant, insulting comment from a Liberal backbencher that shows just how out of touch this government really is when it comes to realities in Labrador. These are fundamental issues of Indigenous rights and health. What is the Prime Minister doing specifically to address the concerns raised by Inuit and Innu about poisoning of their fishery with methyl mercury. What is he doing?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the relationship with Indigenous peoples is extraordinarily important for this country, based on respect, based on science, based on partnership, and that's why we are ensuring that the province continues to consult and engage on this project with the full respect that we all expect will be shown towards Indigenous peoples in this country.
The Honourable Member for Lac Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is going to eliminate the positions of regional economic development ministers for Quebec. This is a slap in the face for regions in Quebec that are losing a person who is specifically there to listen to their needs. And worse, out of the other, all of the MPs for Quebec are standing up to say this doesn't make any sense. So are we finally going to do something to help our regions? We need people who understand the specific needs of the different regions in Canada. Will they finally admit that this doesn't make any sense? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, we have a strong team of 40 MPs across this area working for Quebec. With Economic Development Canada, our government is working to support economic development in the regions of Quebec. Our government is committed to promoting innovation, supporting small business growth, and supporting an economy that's good for everyone. The Honourable Member for Lac Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, for 8 years I had the privilege of being a Minister of Economic Development for Quebec. I worked for Val-d'Or, for Longueuil, I went all over Quebec, and now, I don't know Mississauga very well, but I can tell you that in Quebec, I know that. And it's important to have somebody who understands their local region. When it comes to creating jobs, this is essential. So how are we going to get the softwood lumber file and the European trade file sorted out? The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Is they want a government that's going to be able to deliver for them. And that is why we've invested $380 million for our post-secondary institutions in Quebec. That is why we've invested over $300 million to the Regional Economic Development Agency to invest in all the regions throughout Quebec. And more importantly, we're committed to the aerospace sector. The Mirabel announcement, for example, is going to help secure over 1,000 jobs in that region, Mr. Speaker. That's delivering for Quebec.
The Honourable Member for Battleford, Lloydminster.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the now Trade Minister was in opposition as trade critic, she said, and I quote, "Mr. Speaker, on CETA, we in the Liberal Party are adults." Unfortunately, she was unable to follow her own advice last week as she stormed out of the room during important talks. Since the Trade Minister can't get it done, will the Prime Minister spend some of his shrinking political capital, get on a plane to Brussels, and finalize this important deal?
Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I am all in for Canada at the negotiating table, and I will continue to deliver for Canadians on trade time after time. As it happens, I'm 48 years old, and I'm proud of the achievements in my life, from growing up in northern Alberta to raising my 3 kids in Toronto today. I'm sure every member in this House is equally proud of their achievements and their work for Canadians. For any member to infer that any other member is not an adult diminishes us all.
Order. I know that all members want to be seen as adults and therefore will want to listen to the answers. The Honourable Member for Battleford, Lloydminster.
Well, the trouble part of it, Mr. Speaker, is it's her line, not mine. The fact that the Trade Minister walked away from a deal that would deliver at least 80,000 new jobs for Canadians and increase our bilateral trade with the EU by 20%, her response to such an important trade deal gives Canadians, business and exporters cold comfort. The Prime Minister loves to roll up his sleeves for photo ops. How about he roll up his sleeves, get on a plane, and get the job done that the Trade Minister couldn't? If he can't do that, maybe he'd like to double down and get TPP done.
Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to CETA, Canada has done its job. In fact, Stephen Harper's former Director of Policy said, and I quote, "There is not much to fault this government for on CETA. I think they have been working hard. In fact, I know they have been working hard to conclude this deal. Perrin Beatty, a former Conservative minister and CEO of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, said, and I quote, "Canada has done what it can. This is a matter of internal politics within Europe, and they have to resolve it themselves." If the Conservatives really support CETA, maybe they should be adults and get behind us.
Opposition House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, last week the millionaire finance minister told those Canadians who work in jobs like truck driving or receptionists that their services are no longer required. There is a lot of yelling.
Order. Order. I'm hearing noise on both sides. We don't want to hear noise on both sides. We want to hear the question. The Honourable Opposition House Leader, order.
This talk of adult conversations that seem to have gotten everybody all worked up. Mr. Speaker, the dismissive comments from the Liberal finance minister are sadly very typical of Liberal elite. While the finance minister has time to hobnob and listen to his rich friends who can pay for access to him, he ignores ordinary Canadians who work in everyday jobs. When will the finance minister stop insulting these Canadians who he's so clearly out of touch with and start doing his job?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we know that it's critically important that we support Canadians as they strive to be successful. We know that the challenges of globalization and technology change are real. We also know that Canadians can succeed. We are working to support them through education, through training, through retraining, methods that we know that will enable us to continue to be successful in the face of global challenges. That's what we're going to do for Canadians now and in the future. Thank you, Mr. President.
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, what the finance minister might not be aware of is there are small businesses that create jobs like receptionists and truck drivers, and they're actually happy in their jobs and they want to keep doing their jobs. And it's ministers like this who don't understand the jobs that are created by small businesses, sometimes 1 or 2, 3 people who are employed. So whether it's increasing taxes on small businesses, CPP tax hike, a carbon tax, why are the Liberals so intent in making enemies out of small businesses and the good people who work every single day for them?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to say, as part of our pre-budget consultations, we've now talked to more than 140,000 Canadians. We absolutely recognize that listening to Canadians is critically important, and we know that many Canadians are anxious. They're anxious to see that the success that they want for themselves and their families can actually be delivered. And that's what we intend on doing. We started it with Budget 2016. We're going to keep on this track this fall, next year, so that we can ensure that for the future of Canada, Canadians are successful as they face challenges in their roles.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-Sirois. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This weekend, the finance minister said that precarious jobs are going to be the norm for Generation Y and that they should get used to it. Today, the Prime Minister was booed at a summit for young working people because he repeated these words. The Liberals' inaction is making young people increasingly cynical. Many of these young people have precarious jobs and they expect this government to improve their working conditions. So instead of adopting a laissez-faire attitude, when will this government finally make an effort and show leadership? And when will they take action to fight against precarious jobs? The Honourable Minister of Labour.
I think each and every one of us knows the tough time that youth are facing in today's economy, and that our government recognizes the changing nature of work and how young Canadians need to be prepared to adapt to these challenges. That's exactly why our government has made unprecedented investments in skills and training, much of it directed to youth, which to help them find and keep good-paying jobs. In addition, last week I was proud to launch the expert panel on youth employment. This panel is going to...
Member for Churchill-Kiewit-Nilkaski.
Mr. Speaker, after a year of this government turning its back on young people, delegates at the HoC Youth Conference today symbolically turned their backs on the Prime Minister. Young Canadians are growing increasingly frustrated by their precarious future. Yesterday, I invited the Prime Minister to our national forum on the rise of precarious work in the millennial generation. But will this government recognize that this trend is a result of policies many brought in by Liberal governments that are marginalizing the millennial generation? And will the Prime Minister recognize that young Canadians don't need selfies? What they need is economic change.
Here, here. Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, how we can work to ensure success for young Canadians is absolutely critical to this government. We started down this path in Budget 2016 by talking about how we could help students. We are working on strategies to ensure that we help people to get the skills, both training and retraining, that will allow them to face up to the economy of today so they can be successful not only today but in the future. That's our agenda. It's real change.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, access to the Finance Minister should be fair for all Canadians. Having access for cash to the Liberal Party for $1,500 is a real problem. This access, privileged access to the Finance Minister, is reserved to the highest level of society. What's the goal? The Honourable House Leader. Mr. Speaker, he is deliberately conflating things here. We've committed to open and transparent consultations, and on the other hand, he's confusing fundraising rules. We are following the rules, and I hope that all MPs in this House will too. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, privileged access to the Finance Minister leads us to believe that certain critical economic files are being influenced more than others to the benefit of certain interest groups. Mr. Speaker, can the Finance Minister reassure the House that privileged access for these wealthy people is not leading Canada in a bad direction to the detriment of Canadians? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, all Canadians have access to our government. We have a more open and more transparent government. That is what Canadians asked for, and that's what we're providing. We are following the rules, and we will continue to do so. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Red Deer, Lacombe, order.
Mr. Speaker, on November 7th, the Finance Minister will be the star attraction at another Cash for Access fundraiser organized by Barry Sherman, the chairman of Apotex. Now, we know that Apotex has lobbied the Finance Minister 3 times in the last 6 months. And now we've learned that Apotex is actively suing the federal government. So clearly the Prime Minister's rules are being broken. So why won't the Prime Minister punish his ministers? Is it because the Prime Minister has secretly instructed his ministers to engage in these cash for access kickbacks anyway?
Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I reject the premise of the question, and I have to say they are intentionally confusing an open and transparent budget consultation process with lawful, ethical fundraising. It is important that we recognize that this government follows the rules, the same rules that were put in place by the previous government. And if it worked for that government, if it worked for the Conservatives when they were in government, why doesn't it work for them now? Our government committed to Canadians to be more open, more transparent, and to engage and consult with Canadians. We will continue to listen to Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Red Deer, Lacombe.
The thing being rejected, Mr. Speaker, is them with their own rules. The rules the Prime Minister published were clear. No stakeholder should get preferential access because they donate to a party or a politician. He either believes in his words or he doesn't. The Vice President of RBC Dominion Securities attended an event with the Finance Minister in October. The CEO of Elliston Construction attended the Prime Minister's event in September. And now the Chairman for Apotex is helping organize the Finance Minister's November High Roller event. Does the Prime Minister believe in his rules? And if he does, when will he stop dodging these questions and put an end to these cash for access fundraisers?
Honourable Government House Leader, order.
Mr. Speaker, I have to say what's clear is that the Conservatives have not changed their ways, and they continue to mix an open and transparent budget consultation process with fundraising for political parties, fundraising that all parties in this House do, fundraising that is following the rules that were in place by the previous government. And the reason why they're being so noisy is because they don't want to hear what's happening, because we are following the rules, and to act otherwise is just unjust, something the Conservatives are very good at doing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, we have learned that the government is perhaps planning to privatize Canadian airports. Taxpayers have contributed hugely to setting up this infrastructure that is vital for our economy. Now, the government is planning to sell off these goods to finance its deficit. We know that the recommendation to privatize airports is in the Emerson report, which completely ignored the views of workers and travelers. Is the government planning to act on these recommendations to finance its infrastructure plan? Honourable Minister of Transport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for his question. Of course, the Emerson report had 60 recommendations. He talked about one of them, but the priority for us is to protect consumers and protect the interests of Canadians when it comes to airports, airlines, and other things that are important to Canadians. We are examining the issue, but we have certainly not made a decision. The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, representatives from the Canadian Housing and Renewal Association from across Canada have come to the Hill today to talk about housing. They're concerned by the loss of rental subsidies at the end of agreements, and this year alone over 140,000 households could lose their subsidy. The minister needs to resolve this urgent situation, but he's only come up with temporary measures. So what is his long-term plan? Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague because she's given me an opportunity to highlight the importance of our partners and our efforts to come up with an agreement. In March 2016, we announced a major investment for short-term needs, and we are working with other levels of government and all communities to come up with short and long-term strategies to help people.
Mr. Speaker, today the world's largest travel guide, The Lonely Planet, named Canada as a premier destination for 2017. We know our government is working hard to make sure Canada is ready to welcome the world as we celebrate 150 years of Confederation. Can the Minister of Small Business and Tourism please tell us what we are doing to build on this momentum and make sure that we are fully supporting our tourism industry?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the honourable member for that great question. Being named the top tourist destination in 2017 by Lonely Planet is both an endorsement and an opportunity. And an opportunity to grow the economy, to increase export revenues, to create more jobs for the middle class and those working hard to join it, and to bring more tourists to our great nation for a taste and feel of what Canada has to offer. Small businesses are the backbone of the tourism industry, and where the Conservative government was cutting support, our government has increased funding to Destination Canada to increase our market share and to ensure people don't just visit Canada, they keep coming back.
The member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, at committee we heard searing testimony which showed that Yazidis face discrimination by UN refugee processing agents. The sad reality is that the UN isn't referring Yazidis, genocide victims, to Canada as candidates for entry as government-sponsored refugees. Given this, will the government commit to working with a broad range of groups, such as YASDA, to develop new ways of identifying genocide victims and immediately bringing them to Canada?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for her question, and I think the great thing about today is that parties have risen above partisanship, and all of us are supporting this motion about Yazidis, just as all parties supported our effort to bring 25,000 refugees from Syria. And so I think when we look around the world, we can be pleased, although we have some differences, that we have come together on these two important refugee issues, and we will work to get the job done.
The honourable member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Yazidi survivors of sexual slavery have been subjected to horrors that many of us can't even understand. As one victim said, if you can't save us, please bomb us, as we can't bear to live. These women need to come to Canada, and they will need special support and care. Will the government commit to bringing Yazidi sex slave survivors to Canada and ensuring that special programs are in place to care for them and aid in their recovery?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I had the pleasure and the honour to meet Nadia earlier today, and I salute her for the amazing work and dedication she has shown on this subject. And I assure you, Mr. Speaker, that we on this side of the House are every bit as enthusiastic and committed to welcoming Yazidis to this country. We are looking into various ways in which this can be done, and we will do the job.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, images of Canadian troops operating Iraqi vehicles, setting targets with sniper rifles, and painting targets near Mosul have emerged on social media. One source said Canadian soldiers are still moving on the front line. When the Liberals were in opposition, they demanded more transparency, but have now ended briefings on what our troops are doing in the battle for Mosul. This is blatant hypocrisy. Why should Canadians have to learn on Twitter what our troops are doing to defeat ISIS rather than from the government?
The Secretary of the Ministry of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as you'll recollect, this House debated the Train Assist and Advise motion back in February and March of this year, and based upon that motion and based upon instructions from the government, the military is in fact conducting its Train, Advise and Assist motion. Any other commentary beyond that, Mr. Speaker, such as suggested by the honourable member opposite, would in fact jeopardize operational security, and he would not, I'm sure, wish to do that.
The honourable member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Well, we know that the security of our soldiers is important as well. The government is tight-lipped about what our soldiers are doing in Iraq. However, our Kurdish partners seem less reticent. The information agency Kurd Redoubt is broadcasting images of Canadian soldiers on the front lines in the operation to liberate Mosul. So it's shameful that we have to learn what our Canadian soldiers are doing from the Kurds. Why are Canadians learning this on Twitter?
I'm actually a bit surprised that the honourable member would raise issues as to images of Canadian soldiers, alleged or otherwise. It is an important operational security issue that the government, if you will, to use his words, remains tight-lipped about these issues. The siege of Mosul is underway. It is enjoying some success. Canadian soldiers stay within their mandate to train, assist, and advise. Thank you.
Member for Port Moody, Coquitlam.
It's been 12 days since the Nathan E. Stewart ran aground, spilling diesel fuel into the traditional waters of the HoC First Nation. The situation is being described by First Nation leaders as an environmental disaster, and the government response has been an abject failure. First massive delays, then a vessel hired to help with the cleanup began to sink. And yesterday, oil booms failed because of rough weather. What is the government doing to prevent further damage? And is this what the minister meant by a world-class response? And if so, what planet is he living on?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, our government remains committed to improving marine security. That is why I'm working with my colleague, the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, to come forward with a coastal strategy that will improve marine safety. Certainly, the tragic events of the Nathan Stewart tug sinking is a clear illustration that we need to do more. We are working with the local community. I spoke today with the HoC chief of that region, and we are working with them, but we will be coming forward with better measures in the future to address marine security.
Member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, instead of expanding access to broadband internet, companies like TELUS are actually disconnecting my constituents. As of November 16th, residents of Cortez Island and parts of Quadra Island will have no internet whatsoever. While we've seen some commitments on broadband, there seems to be zero funding for the last mile connection in rural Canada. What will this government do to prevent my constituents from being cut off from the internet next month and make sure all rural Canadians have access to broadband?
The Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member opposite for asking a very important question. We understand the challenges around the digital divide. This is something our government is very much committed to addressing. We're also working on a program called Connecting Canadians, and this is about making sure that we connect Canadians in rural and remote regions. But above and beyond that, in the last budget, we committed to over $500 million for broadband connectivity. We're going to be rolling out this program to make sure that we deal with that digital divide and also the socioeconomic issues that are existing in some of our urban centres as well, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, the RCMP are investigating how a chief and his family allegedly took $4.2 million over 3.5 years. This was money that was to be used for bands to improve life on reserve, but instead went to trips for Cuba and Vegas. The information sat in the department for years where they noticed nothing amiss. Members only found out about this outrageous abuse through the First Nations Transparency Act. When will the minister ensure that basic information is easily accessible to band members?
The Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, accountability and transparency are key tenets of the government and are vital in ensuring the delivery of the historic event investments to Indigenous and Northern communities through Budget 2016. While we are engaging First Nations on the way forward on transparency and accountability, First Nations continue their long-standing practice of reporting on their financial and program performance, both to their members and to the department. The member knows this very well.
The member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, they've been engaging for over a year and they've done absolutely nothing. The First Nations Transparency Act showed that the vast majority of First Nations expenditures were reasonable and appropriate. Unfortunately, we now have a list of bands where there is significant concerns, from Alexander to Sampson Cree. In the words of Shara Green, the grassroots people are the ones suffering in the end. When will the minister get the records out of the department's basement and enforce the Transparency Act?
Well, Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the government takes these allegations of misuse very seriously, and when necessary, the member knows well, INAC conducts the forensic audits to ensure that the funds were used for the intended manner. The audit was commissioned by the Alexander First Nation, and therefore we can't comment on it, but we're reviewing the situation in order to determine whether or not a forensic audit will be required. So we are working with the information, and each First Nation and any First Nation member who has any questions can get that information.
The honourable member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Mr. Speaker, the Agriculture Minister's Chief of Staff faces allegations of perjury in court this week. Is it true that this is a private prosecution because the previous charge filed was thrown out by Justice of the Peace and former Ontario Liberal Agriculture Minister Leona Dombrowski, whose family sold their quota to the same Chief of Staff's company? $140 million of egg quota, lawsuits left and right, sealed court records, a failed Liberal candidate. Why is this minister keeping this walking, talking ethics time bomb around?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having a person in my office with this agricultural experience is an asset to my office and to the agricultural community. This is a very successful and upstanding member of our community, my Chief of Staff. She is a successful lawyer and a successful businesswoman. And has also been nominated Citizen of the Year. I think it's an asset to agriculture, and it's an asset to my office to have a woman with these credentials working in the office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, as many of my colleagues know, I am working to make Saguenay the Canadian capital of healthy living. And I challenge my colleagues here in the House to do the same in their communities. Can the Minister of Health tell us how her major announcement yesterday on healthy eating will help Canadians make good, healthy choices? Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague, the member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord, for his question. We are using all the tools that are available to us, that is legislation, the health guide, and so on, to encourage Canadians to make the right choices. We are working on sodium, trans fats, and publicity to children.
Cold Lake.
Mr. Speaker,
The Canadian International Trade Tribunal has begun an investigation into the Liberal drywall tariff and its effects. The tribunal expects to have its first hearings in late November. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal drywall tariff is far from being settled and has devastating effects on the people in Fort McMurray who are trying to rebuild their homes and lives. Will the Minister of International Trade suspend the Liberal tariff until a verdict is reached, or is this new tax just too much for the Liberal government to pass on?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we know that many families in Western Canada are concerned that anti-dumping tariffs are affecting the price and availability of drywall, especially those working to rebuild Fort McMurray. There are concerns that these duties could delay important projects, including the rebuilding there. Ensuring that fair trade practices is important, but delays in reconstruction are a serious concern. And that's why I've asked the Canadian International Trade Tribunal to investigate whether or not tariffs are in the public interest immediately, instead of after its final determination is made, and to report on their findings as soon as possible in January so that we can determine the best path forward.
Member for Saskatoon West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is Rainbow Day on Parliament Hill, but this government has failed to fix many issues still facing members of the LGBTQ community. LGBTQ Canadians who serve this country proudly as members of the Canadian Forces who are dishonorably discharged for being gay or lesbian are still waiting for the revision of their service records. Given that the Defence Committee has just voted unanimously to right this wrong and the military ombudsman stands ready to act, will the government act to revise the records without...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for National Defence.
I thank the honourable member for this question. It was raised by her colleague earlier in the year. It's an important question, and I think we can all in this House agree that the practices prior to 1992 are unacceptable in 2016. Because this is an important issue, the whole of government is engaged in this in an appropriate and fulsome response to the question that she has raised. So I'm hoping that in the fullness of time we will get back to her in a way that is quite appropriate.
Honourable Member for Pickering-Uxbridge.
Mr. Speaker, today is the first annual Energy Star Day in Canada. The Energy Star symbol identifies high-efficiency products in lighting, appliances, electronics, and new homes. Would the Honourable Minister of Natural Resources tell the House how the Energy Star program contributes to energy efficiency in our daily lives and saves Canadians money?
Minister.
Speaker, I want to thank the member from Pickering-Uxbridge for this excellent question. We are proud to support Energy Star, a symbol that identifies products and new homes that meet or exceed high-efficiency standards. Earlier this year, I presented the 2016 Energy Star Canada Award at the Manitoba Hydro building in Winnipeg, one of the most energy-efficient buildings in the world. On this inaugural Energy Star Day, we encourage all Canadians to make a commitment to save energy and protect the environment.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
I met with a number of thalidomide survivors who are here in Ottawa today. Their stories are heartbreaking. They have been denied coverage under the compensation that our government announced in 2015, and they have no right to appeal. Will the Health Minister do the right thing, start working with the survivors, and provide them with the compensation that would make their life more bearable?
Minister of Health.
As he has indicated, the story of thalidomide in the 1950s and 1960s was a tragedy. As Minister of Health and as a family doctor, I sympathize deeply with the hardship that this has caused for those who have been impacted. The previous government developed a compensation program for affected individuals and selected Crawford & Company to act as an independent third-party administrator. Our government is committed to continuing to offer support to help people live the rest of their lives with dignity.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, the Muskrat Falls Labrador hydroelectric project is a real fiasco that's already cost $6.5 billion of taxpayers' money. The site is literally a disaster. But the Prime Minister and Newfoundland are discussing removing the ceiling on federal funding. The cost may go up to $15 billion, maybe even more. Nobody knows. Does the Prime Minister intend to invest even more Quebecers' money in this bottomless pit that Muskrat Falls is? This is a bad project for Quebec. The Honourable Minister.
The previous government offered a loan guarantee to the Muskrat Falls project in 2013. If the government of Newfoundland seeks to have that loan guarantee extended, the government of Canada will look at it very seriously.
The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, Muskrat Falls is an economic, environmental, and otherwise disaster for Quebec. We think that this could even lead to a declaration of independence. There are 2 unanimous resolutions from the National Assembly saying that this is unfair competition with Hydro-Quebec. So why is billions of dollars being put into this project? The Honourable Minister of National Resources.
If the government of Newfoundland and Labrador wishes to discuss the possibility of an extension of loan guarantees, the government of Canada will consider it seriously.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of Ms. Nadia Murad Bazi Taha, Nobel Peace Prize nominee, United Nations Goodwill Ambassador for the dignity of survivors of human trafficking. It being 3:05 p.m., pursuant to order made on Thursday, October 20th, 2016, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the amendment to the motion of Ms. Rempel relating to the business of supply. Call on the members. La question est la suivante.
The question is the following one. Ms. Rempel, seconded by Mr. Dreeshen, moved that the House A recognize that ISIS is committing genocide against the Yazidi people. B, acknowledge that many Yazidi women and girls are still being held captive by ISIS as sexual slaves by ISIS. C, recognize that the government has neglected to provide this House with an appropriate plan and the corresponding action required to respond to this humanitarian crisis.
Found in the June 15, 2016 report issued by the United Nations Commission of Inquiry on Syria entitled, "They Came to Destroy ISIS Crimes Against the Yazidis." And E, call on the government to 1, take immediate action upon all the recommendations found in Section 210, 212, and 213 of said report,